Alright, whoopsies. Hello there YouTube, welcome back to another tutorial for LightWave. Today we're going to be looking at sort of how to make things look good. It's a very questionable thing to say. There's a lot of styles and a lot of ways of doing things when it comes to a 3D package, especially one like LightWave. And you can't simply just make something look good, because that sorry, that question in its own right doesn't truly make sense. I'm just gonna empty this. It's probably got a lot of space in it. But I figured I would explain some of the steps and procedures if you're looking for something that's photorealistic, so something that will grant you with a nice looking image towards the end. Now I'm not a complete professional when it comes to this program. I've been using it for years and years, and I'm still not the best out there in the world. So you know, I can't promise you perfect photorealism, but I can promise you at least a decent photo, enough to post online, basically, is what I'm saying. And we're gonna start off with a basic scene. It's going to be a scene that I've used before. It's from my tutorial on anti-aliasing and ambient on collision, and it's 6 polygons in total, as you can see from the AO and AA demo. And as you can see, it's this again. It's the basic box and plane that I had before inside my AA and AO tutorial, which I do recommend watching before this, because I will be using AA and I will be using ambient on collision throughout this tutorial. This tutorial is going to be a long one, which is why I'm going slow with it. It's probably going to be more than one part long, each part being roughly 10 to 20 minutes long, so you're expected to see quite a bit. So if we switch to polygon mode and check our statistics, as I said, we have 6 polygons. Later on, we will be dealing with much more polygons as a way to simply add more detail to the scene. But I'll be showing you guys that later on. So let's get started in looking at this. It really depends on what you want to do. There are many ways about doing certain things. The assumption that I'm making today in this tutorial is that you want things to look photorealistic. That's what most people have a tendency to want, but in reality that's not how it always is. I mean, you can look at things like Clash of Clans, their trailers, their cinematics, their commercials. Those animations are obviously not photorealistic, but they are very good paying animations, and they're very high-end animations as well. Probably done by at least more than one person, or maybe one person. It depends on the skill of the individual. And I can imagine they get paid quite a bit to do it as well. So don't think that photorealism is the only way you have to go. It really isn't. There's a lot of ways about going through animation. You know, there's anime in general. For example, you have Ruby. Ruby's a good example of anime style 3D animation, a very good example, in fact. And there's many others. A lot of cartoons actually use 3D programs like LightWave. There's all sorts of things. But we're going to be looking at photorealism, and a lot of people, they make their own textures. we will not be making our own textures. We will be using textures given to us from the internet. Personally, I use cgtextures.com. It provides me with, oh wait, I don't really have internet connection right now, it's failing on me. Don't know why, it just, I start uploading one video and it just shuts down completely. I use cgtextures.com. It has high-res textures for free. You have a limit of 15 megabyte download every day, but it is very good. It's recommended by many 3D artists. It's very good. I believe they insist that you are allowed to use the textures, but only if you don't make money off of it, I think. I can't recall. As for those people who do make your own textures, please do not get mad at me. I'm honest. Honestly, I kind of praise you a little bit. You guys obviously work very hard for your textures, and many times you can get really good results from making your own textures, but unfortunately at the end of the day, that's what you get. You get what you're capable of. If I want photorealistic textures, I go outside and I take a photo of something, and I literally have a photo of something. It's as realistic as it can ever possibly get. We're also going to be making maps, or well, I won't show you the process of making the maps. You guys can do that on your own. But within here, I have my maps folder. As you can see, I've got my displacement map, or not displacement, diffuse maps, my displacement maps here, which are height maps, my normal maps, my specular, and the same with my other texture, which we will be using in LightWave. If you would like to make these textures, a lot of people recommend that you make them yourself. Again, I don't hate on these people who do. I don't blame them. I don't think they shouldn't. But it speeds up the process to use a third-party program. Personally, I use a program called GIMP 2. It's a photo editing program. I used to use Photoshop for creating normal maps, but it kind of didn't work out very well for me towards the end. It could do some photos, but not all. So I've been using GIMP with 2 plugins. I will leave a description for GIMP as well as the 2 plugins in the description. I'll leave a description. I'll leave links, sorry. And basically you just plug the image, the original image, into the program, and then you go down to like filters or whatever it is, image then filters, I think, or filters and then maps, and then you click on insane bump and it will process the entire thing. And then you just click execute and it will drop these in, and then you'll be able to use them. Again, if you want things that look perfectly the way you want them to, it's highly recommended that you make it yourself. Like for example, this, any person could create themselves, but that takes a lot of time. It's a lot of hard work too. Again, I don't blame the people who do. I believe that they're really good actually, but this is not a Photoshop tutorial. I'm afraid you would have to look elsewhere to find videos on making your own maps. Instead, I would just do it through GIMP or Photoshop if you can find plugins for everything else. GIMP is free, by the way. It's 100% free. I find that Photoshop is just more user-friendly, so I use both towards the end of the day. But again, all these maps can be made by your own hand. I wouldn't, just who I am. As you can see, I've got my images here. I've got the originals and my edited images. This is the original. It's a 700 by 700 pixel that I got from cgtextures.com, and the edited image is this one. As you can see, it's quite different already. It's a 1400 by 1400 pixel image, and it's got additional sort of grime and depth added to it. I did that in Photoshop. This is the original of the ground texture I'll be using. It's very basic, and then the edited version, again a little bit more depth, a little bit more grime here and there, just to try and add some variety towards the picture. It'll make it look a little bit better. These are quite bare textures. They're just, you know, they're just this, and then the other one is, you know, just that. If you wanted a lot more detail, a lot more realism, you could add a bunch of decals to it. You could add all sorts of things, which I would recommend. As for the objects, of course, we have our 6 polygon one. Later on, we will be subpatching and increasing the polygon count for both of these objects. That way we can use displacement maps to add incredible amounts of detail. But we're going to stick with the basics so far. So let's take a look at, and that should be it actually. So let's take a look at the surface editor. As you can see, I do have smoothing turned off, as well as subpatching. I don't really need it too much. As you can see, it doesn't even really do anything since we don't really have a polygon count to really smooth anything. Ooh, I've got a node in there. Why do I have a node in there? Oh, that's right. That's from the Occlusion tutorial. I say on collision because it's so much easier. Anyways, turn that off. We're going to take a look at the texture of our maps here, or texture of our objects. For this one, I actually created a texture map using Atlas, or I didn't, and I just used Atlas for this. The reason why I did that is because it will sort of size it perfectly. It will it'll do a very good job of, if I need to move the ground for whatever reason, let's say if I wanted the box to slide across the ground for whatever reason, I could actually move the ground instead of moving the box, which would be a bit interesting. And then I kept the box as projection cubic. The reason why is because it's a perfect box, and it is 1 meter by 1 meter by 1 meter, so it was really easy to just set up cubic for it. So under the texture editor, which we reach by clicking on the T under color, we can add ourselves a texture, and we can go to images. As you can see, because I've got my path, directory path set up, it will automatically direct me to whatever paths I might need. It doesn't know all of them, but it knows enough anyways. So I'll just add that brick texture to it. I still have a planar, whoopsies. I'll set it to cubic, and there we go. There's our brick texture. From far away, it looks like crap, but up close, it looks pretty decent. It is a seamless texture, which means no matter at what angle I view it at, or no matter you know, the texture repeats, but because it's seamless, they fit together perfectly. It's one of the few benefits. The only thing that doesn't, I believe, would be the top. But you could actually project that separately and then edit the texture separately. You wouldn't, I wouldn't really bother too much with that, to be honest. Yeah, you can see it's a bit off here. Oh well, who cares about that really? It can't be that noticeable, to be honest. And even then, you know, I'm cool with it. Whatever. Now let's go to the plane. Now we created a UV for it. I just call it texture. In my actual one, I called it ground, I believe. And then we can load our soil texture, our ground texture, into it. Now here's where it's important to to take note of the size of your textures compared to the other size of the textures. You want to make sure that it looks semi-realistic. These are pretty huge cracks. In all honesty, I kind of like that. I think I would actually go into here and I would change that Just a little bit. I would make it. I'm gonna get a bit smaller. I don't mind if it very badly tiles, because we'll have the camera up close. Like, we'll have the camera about right there. So I'm not worried about this tiling here. Otherwise, I would make it seamless, and I would tile it. That way, I wouldn't have to worry about that. But we'll be either doing that with the camera, or we'll be doing something around that, and it's not that noticeable, to be honest, which is okay. We'll live. Trust me, we'll live. Okay, so we're gonna start adding our maps. Now, we do have a diffuse map, so we're gonna add diffuse, and it's under the maps, diffuse. You'll notice it gets really dark. That is normal, because that's basically what diffuse map does. It will define where the light parts are lighter and the dark parts are lighter or darker. Sorry. If you find that it makes it just way too dark for your comfortability, and you find that this is just too much, you can go to the image editor, go to our texture displacement, or diffuse, and we can increase the brightness. So let's go 0.5, way too bright, as you can see. 0.2, quite a bit better. I think 0.25 might work. I don't mind that. That's pretty good. I would like to keep this scene lighter, because there's going to be a lot of light, because it takes place outside. If it was inside, I would certainly have a little bit of a darker diffuse map. So under this, we're going to add our next one. Again, new V, texture, and let's add the soil texture diffuse. Again, is that too dark? I could add a little bit of brightness to that. Not too much, maybe 1.5. Yeah, that seems pretty good to me. I'll keep that. That's good for me. So under box, we're going to copy and paste this, just so that we don't have to set anything up anymore. We're going to go to specularity. Let's add the specularity, and let's replace the image with the specularity image, which is the S, and we're going to add it to that. So now our image here has some specularity on it. We can't really see it. That's perfectly fine. We can play around with these settings a little bit. If you really want to be picky, you can put it into layout. You can take renders, and you can keep on rendering and play around with these settings until you get something that looks very nice. Otherwise, use this as a reference. As you can see, it's pretty shiny right there. What I would do is I would probably reduce that to 15 and then increase this a little bit. That seems okay. I wouldn't mind that. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go to this. We're going to again copy and paste, plop over to specularity, and then replace. And this time we're going to go to this one, which is the specularity image. And again, we're going to play around with these settings. This setting, specularity, it does change a little bit. That's why it doesn't gray out, even if you add a texture to it. It doesn't change it dramatically. Like if I go like that, it's not going to change dramatically. But changing it just a little bit can affect things ever so slightly. This one I'm actually going to have quite... It's actually quite barren land, so you know what? I'm not going to have it very specular at all, actually. In fact, I might actually darken that image altogether. Let's do that. So soil texture, let's take brightness and let's decrease it to negative 0.15. 2, 4. Let's try 3. No, let's go with 2.5. Yeah, that looks pretty good if you ask me. It's not too shiny, not too dark. We can spread it out just a little bit more. Let's increase its strength a little bit, and then we'll spread it out just a bit more. That way, there we go. That'll work for me anyways. So now we're actually going to add our normal map, which is done through the nodal editor. Sorry for anybody who doesn't like the nodal editor, it's how it works, buddy. Click on the check mark to activate it, then click on edit nodes to enter the nodal editor, and type in normal, or norma, whatever works. And it's the first one under 2D textures. And all we have to do is find our texture. It's this one here. We have to, I generally, well, we can switch it to, we have to switch it to cubic anyways. But it gives us a pretty good idea of what it's going to look like. As you can see, it's pretty damn noisy. We're going to reduce its power quite drastically. That should work. And we're going to apply the normal. As you can see, it added, if you take a look at the display here, it will add quite a bit of a jump in, well, realism, if you will. We can play with that. Because this is the main focus of our camera, we might as well bump it quite a lot, just so that we can see that detail. Let's go 40%, that's a good amount. And we'll just leave it at that. The plane is the one we'll do next. Press enter to get it, and again we're going to load the normal map. You'll notice that when you use GIMP, if you haven't noticed already, you get a bunch of different types of normal maps. This is the regular normal map that you get with it. This is the, I believe it's the intense normal map, something like that. You also get a super normal map, and they're all basically explained through here. The super normal map would be SN. The regular normal map is just normal, or N. The intense one is IN. The height normal map is HN, and then the fucking hell, what's the other one? There's one more. MN is medium normal. So it's best to really just look at the normal maps themselves. Whoopsies. I wanted to actually open it. It's best to just look at the normal maps, you know, look at it. Would that look pretty good? If you actually just look at it, you kind of notice that the normal map themselves look 3D, don't they? Just by looking at them. And that's how a 3D program recognizes that it's 3D, is by these colors, and it just creates this illusion of 3D-ness to it, of depth to it. And just look at it and decide, you know, would that look good on my texture? Would it look bad on my texture? It's really up to the person, so that's up to them. As you can see, it's really powerful as usual. So we'll reduce this down to maybe, let's go about 50% because this is the ground. I'm going to use UV map and texture and plug it into the normal. And of course we can play with those settings anytime later on. And now what we can do is we can save it like so. And now we're going to synchronize with layout and send the object to layout. If you do not have those options colored when you click on this arrow, if they're grayed out, the reason why is because you do not have your hub turned on, which is one of the things required for doing that. Anyways, let's take our camera and move it forward.